episode 2 of Ark the Lost Colony Primitive Playthrough. Today's goals are going to be setting up a permanent base, but first I am taming some raptors. So these little iceberg or ice chunks in the rivers, they are absolutely terrible because not only do I get stuck on them, but the raptors do as well. So I guess it's kind of a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. I use them in order to tame up about 3 raptors, as you see there. They get stuck on the ice and they completely cannot move. Now it is a little bit tricky to get them out after I tame them, but we'll get there when we get there. Now, while I was waiting for them to tame up, another raptor came upon me, only it was an alpha raptor, so that was not expecting. I did almost manage to take it out with just my spear. My raptors that tamed up as I was fighting it managed to take it on the rest of the way, so when I got back to collect my stuff, luckily the alpha raptor was already dead. I then spent about 5 minutes trying to get my newly tamed raptors unstuck from the ice. A couple of them came out pretty easy, but one of them did get stuck for a little bit longer. I went back and got them later after I delivered these 2 at home. I check on the Elder Claw seed, making sure it's good to go, and I go to make a couple of raptor saddles. And I also have a tribal looking saddle skin to put on them to make them look nice and cool. Now I go to take one of the raptors out for a spin, checking out my new raptor saddle that I had made, only for a fucking micro raptor to come out of nowhere and knock me off my mount. Typical Ark. That seems to always be the case anytime I want to check out a new mount, is I get attacked by a microraptor. I also get attacked by a pack of the little warping fox guys, little Veilwinds or whatever they're called. I actually don't know why they started attacking me because I didn't attack them first. There was about 3 or 4 of them, but luckily they went down, though they did freeze my character, which I didn't even remember that they could do. After that, I headed a little bit further out from my base and I managed to tame a dire wolf. I would have tamed the Sabertooth as well, but I didn't have as many trank arrows in order to do it, so I had to kill that one. After taming the direwolf, I headed back home and I made myself a full set of flak gear. Now, it won't be as warming as the other gear that I was wearing, but it does give me a lot more defense bonus, so I won't die nearly as quick. I went ahead and I skinned it so I can look my tribal appearance that I always do, and now it was time to go look for a permanent home. I want to live more in the middle of the map, that way I have easy access to everywhere else, also so I am closer to the city, because it seems that the city is going to be kind of the end game zone where you want to be and where the final boss is, so the closer I am, the better. I didn't see any other way of getting to the center of the map that wasn't going through this ravine. Now, I did have to go down slowly down this ramp because it was either that or jumping off the cliff. Though, as I was walking along the side, halfway up, I did end up slipping and taking a lot of damage on my bison. Luckily, she didn't die from that, and the other 2 kind of jumped down and they're not going to be damaged at all, so that was fine. But at least I was at the bottom now, so I was able to walk the rest of the way. Now, this ravine is actually pretty dangerous if you're not paying attention, but we'll get there when we get there. First things first, as I'm walking about halfway through the ravine, I spy a snow owl. Now, I have actually never gotten to see one of these in person because the DLC that they were introduced to, I actually never purchased on Survival Evolved. I only played up to the Ascension map, so any of the newer, I will say, maps such as Extinction or Genesis and such, I am going to play for the first time on Ascended because they are free. I go ahead and I tranked down the snow owl, which was not that easy. Even though I was able to get a first couple of hits while it was attacking me, it flew really fast. Luckily, it flew into a rock wall of the ravine, and then I was able to hit it the last couple of times to knock it down. I had some food on me and I tamed it up fairly easy. After taming the snow owl, I continued on my path through the ravine, of course making stops every so often to unstuck some of my tames because they would just get stuck on every log, every rock, so I'd have to turn around and go and help them. Of course, one of the times I turned around and saw that they were left behind, we were actually being attacked by, I don't actually know how to pronounce it, like a magmar or something. I used to spawn them in the Ragnarok map and play around with them, but I've never actually seen one in the wild, so it was crazy seeing it jump around and use its little like jet wings to boost through the air. It's almost like the Valstrax from Monster Hunter, but even though it was difficult to hit, it has very low health, so only a few hits and it went down. So I was like, oh, okay, that wasn't that terrible. Those guys are all over the ravine, and I got attacked by multiple of them, so you do have to keep an eye out for them. And I noticed I was starting to get cold and taking damage from freezing damage, so I had to put down a campfire and rest for a little while until I was able to regenerate my health. I finally reached the end of the ravine, where it turns out it spits you out right in front of the Grand City. I actually don't know if the city itself has a name. I'm just going to be calling it the city or Grand City or, you know, what have you. Right there you see the bridge that leads into the entryway, and then up from there you would have to take an elevator to go into the main city itself. So right around front here is where I want to make my base. So I looked around for a little bit and I found that there are a lot of cracks in the ground, and going over the cracks are bridges, similar to that one there, though not as grand, and I decided to build on top of one. This one is a little bit out to the side, so it's not like it's in the middle. It's up against a rock wall, but it does have a little back way, so I can exit out that way if I needed to, but the sides are completely walled off, so I'm going to be completely protected from any attackers. This is where I spend the next about half hour building up my permanent home. I'm going to be using rock, or stone rather, in order to make the foundation and the first level of wall, while the rest of it will be wood. I'm going to eventually make it nice looking, but for now I'm going to make it a box just so I can have a home to start building and progressing in. It's going to take a long time filling up this entire bridge with stone, but I'm not going to do the entirety of the bridge. The front and the back end are going to be kind of like patios. So I'm going to have a front patio with a nice little walkway area, and then the back area is going to be where I put all of my planters and some larger tames. I'm eventually going to have to build a secondary bridge in order to cross the gap with some tames if I need to, because they're not going to be able to go through my home, especially if they're larger, and also make a dinosaur gate, but that will be later. Now, while I was harvesting the stone and wood, I do eventually get 3 new skill points with this new expanded system from the Lost Colony DLC, and with those points I put it into Hot-Blooded, which increases my regeneration by 100%, and then I put it again for a 200%. I then put the third point into Heavy-Footed. I'm gonna go more into a melee build this time around. Eventually I got my house somewhat into a usable state. Again, I'm going to expand upon it and make it look pretty later on, though I did get a little bit creative when it came to the side windows. As you see there, kind of made them diamond shaped. It took a little while of playing around, but I got it going. And then I put some pillars around the corners, just kind of make it look a little bit better just for right now. I have 2 forges down, though only one of them has been used in order to make a little bit of metal to make my first smithy. Eventually I'm gonna have to bring everything from my first base over here, but first, before I go and do that, I decided I need to explore the nearby area. After all, this is gonna be where my permanent base is, so I need to know the area of where I built. Now, in the map there are these areas that are kind of like crash zones. These areas are filled with element, and you can see that from the like purplish pink kind of looking areas, and the creatures that spawn in here are kind of like element zombies. Right now I don't see anything. They did not spawn for whatever reason this first time around. I traveled through it, but they do spawn in large hordes and can be very dangerous, so you do want to avoid them unless you're going there for a specific reason. Running past them, I then found an open tundra area. This area is actually really nice looking. If it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to build closer to the city, I would have built out here. There are a lot of creatures to tame out in this tundra area, including the winter drakeling. Now, I don't know if the other drakelings exist on this map. I've only seen the winter ones so far, but I had a torch on me, so I tried my luck to call it down and try aiming it. As it came down, it wanted me to build stuff. Good, I had some fiber on me, so I made a couple of cloth pants, and I only needed to make about 5 before it wanted to be fed. And I actually didn't know that they liked cooked meat, but I had cooked prime meat on me, and it tamed up pretty much instantly. So that was very easy. I got my first little drakeling. While I tamed a summer drakeling on the Ragnarok map, I haven't actually used it in practice yet, so I can't really comment on how they are in terms of utilizing it as a weapon, but you'll you'll get an item in your inventory that you can put on your hotbar that you can use it as, a gun, basically having him bite as a melee weapon or using his fire breath. I did use the fire breath once and it seemed to do a lot of damage to a Dode, which was pretty interesting to see, but after that I went ahead and I tamed up an Ankylosaur. I was killing Ankylosaurs for the keratin for later on because I needed the keratin in order to build a owl saddle. I brought it home right away, and then I went back out and I tamed up another bison. Of course, this time around, this bison did not make it home as I was heading through the element crash zone area, the horde of element zombies spawned, and they killed the bison instantly. I tried running as fast as I could, and eventually I had to jump over the ravine so they couldn't cross over and follow me. I actually got that scared that the wolf was going to die as well. Eventually, I make the snow owl saddle and I headed back to my old base to gather everything else that I had left there and bring it back to my new base. Now, unfortunately, the next clip was lost. It got, well, not lost, it was like corrupted, so I wasn't able to put it into my editing program, but essentially I headed back home. I got my elder claw all raised up and I put everything from the old base into the elder claw as well as the snow owl and the last two raptors that I had tamed up, and from there we headed back through that giant ravine once again. While going through the large ravine with all my new creatures, I came across a Thylacoleo and I killed it, but it had a baby. So I went ahead and I tamed it and I sat around waiting for it to grow up. Of course, bringing on another creature means I also have to babysit it as well, because going through the ravine, just as before, it was getting stuck on everything. All of the trees and rocks would catch onto it, so I would have to break it every like 20 feet so it would continue on the path with me. Eventually, I make it back to my new base with everyone in tow, and I settle them in. Now, this is pretty much going to be the end of the episode. I'm just going to wrap up with what I did. So I used the Elder Claw in order to farm up some wood, because it is excellent at gathering wood, berries, and pretty much anything foliage related, while I used the Ankylosaur to farm up some more stone in order to continue building my base. It was really just the last little end bit that I needed to finish up, just so I can enclose it, because the Dode that I mentioned earlier walked in through the back way because it was not fully enclosed, and I used my Drake in order to kill it. I then built a bunch of large crop plots where I planted some seeds and got them going. I also managed to make a little water system to keep them fully watered, though keeping them fertilized is going to be another issue. Luckily, the snow owl has those snow owl pellets, which is worth a lot of fertilizer, so that will keep me for now, but I'm definitely going to have to either get another snow owl or find a dung beetle. Until then, that's going to be the end of this episode, and I'll see you in the third episode. Make sure you like and subscribe to see more.